Good evening, and welcome to the August 1st, 2022 meeting of the Lake Oswego Development Review Commission. The meeting will now come to order. Kat, would you please call the roll of commissioners present?
Arthur.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Poinsett.
Here.
Sangre.
Here.
Hughes.
Here.
And Timothy Lyons and Jeff Shear are excused this evening.
Thank you. It's good to welcome our Vice Chair, Kirk Smith, and the other commissioners. And I'd like to recognize and acknowledge our Community Development Director, Scott Siegel, who's here this evening, and our City Attorney, Jason Luce. So thank you both for being here, as well as Senior Planner, Evan Franstead. Our first item on the agenda is a report on City Council activities. Councilor John Winland is here, even though the City Council officially is on hiatus this month. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for serving.
Okay. There we go. Well, thanks for being here in August. Thanks for going through the city's business. It looks like on your agenda, you're dealing with a couple city projects. So thank you for your time and effort. They're important projects for the city and we want to do it right. A couple things on update. We are going to be on August recess for council, so I'll update you with a few things from our July activity. And for those of you who are new commissioners, it's not necessarily DRC related, it's more just general information, and at this time you can ask me anything you want, and I may know the answer, but I may not, but I'll find it out for you. So just a couple tidbits. I just want to highlight one thing that I think we should be very proud of as a city and an organization. The last meeting we adopted the last of 3 contracts that we've been working on with our labor unions. We had police and fire, and now we have our Municipal Employees Association, commonly referred to as LOMIA. And I have to tell you that going through the process, we have great employees that work for the city of Lake Oswego. We have great relationships with our union folks. And more importantly, it's a win-win situation, and all the contracts were very fair. And I think it's just a good sign on how a city works well, is if you can have good relationships, and it's a situation where what's good for them is good for us, and what's good for us is good for them, and they've always taken that posture, and I'm just very appreciative of the leadership from the city and from the unions that we're able to do that. So that's a great thing, a good compliment for Lake Oswego. We had a North Anchor project update, and I know that you've been working on some of those projects. We're excited to hear kind of what the market, financial market will bring in the next few months, several months. Things were going splendidly well along with the North Anchor project, and then I think things are still on track, and we had an update that was very positive. One of the things that we did find out, as we all know, is that the economy is under some strain and some different sort of atmospherics with inflation and with higher interest rates and so on. And so the financing component in the commercial real estate market, especially to do with hotels, is kind of, I won't say on pause, but they're just looking at different ways on how to deal with that, and also on residential. So things should be moving forward with that, but I do want to say that I know that you guys have been looking at the projects, and we appreciate your work on that. It's going to be a wonderful addition once it gets done in Lake Oswego, and it's really going to take the North Anchor side of the street and bring everything together. So we're excited about those projects. If you read the Lake Oswego Review or follow social media, you might have heard about a pickleball situation that we have in Lake Oswego. We've spent a a lot of time on pickleball and the consequences of how pickleball is played and the noise factors that come along with it. I just wanted to update you and try to give some clarity on where we're going with it. The Parks and Rec Board spent a few months researching it and working with different constituencies. They put in some mitigation processes with some sound deafening materials and reduce the amount of play. It's still not an optimal situation for either side, either the neighbors that are near the parks that hear this constant noise, or for the pickleball players, because it is the fastest growing sport in America. I don't know if the world, but it is certainly in America. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is keep about 300 or 400 people that play pickleball on our courts happy and the neighbors happy. And we haven't quite figured out the perfect solution, but we have put a task force together to look at possible alternative locations for pickleball, and we look forward to their report within the next few months. And so I think we have 120 days. In fact, we're having our first pickleball task force meeting on Thursday. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up is that we want a win-win situation out of this, but it's in a situation where it's not exactly an easy win-win, where we just can't move the pickleball courts because we don't have spots to put them in, at least at this point. We hope to, and then obviously it's a financial investment. So we don't want to make the neighbors unhappy by having constant noise, but we don't want to take the pickleball people and take away their sport. So anyway, there will be more updates, and you can follow the pickleball saga of Lake Oswego, I'm sure, in the review as you go through. The last item I wanted to bring up is, that's been in the news a little bit, is the lake litigation on access issues to Lake Oswego. Both the Lake Corp, who was involved in the first phase of the lake litigation, and the city joined in part two. Turned out that through recent information that was found by the attorneys, there was it raised some concerns with the judge who is sitting on the case that is actually a Lake Oswego resident and was a representative in Lake Oswego. And it turns out that the point of conflict was raised. She did know and had conversations about this. So both the city and the Lake Corp asked for her to be excused from the case. And she said no. And then so it went to another hearing, and a judge made the decision that she should remove herself from the case. So where we're at right now, we are contemplating, well, the case won't go to court for a while now, part two of it, and there may be some question as to whether part one was valid because of possible conflicts from before. So the lake litigation issue is, as it has been, it's been a long process, and it just got longer. So that's kind of what's happening there. And then, like we said, the City Council will be on August recess, and then we do have a pretty full fall on a number of issues that are coming up. So we'll have lots to report later, but in September, it will be pretty boring because we haven't met. So that's my report for tonight.
Well, thank you again, Councilor Winland. Commissioners, are there any questions of the City Councilor? Well, we do thank you. We value our municipal employees and appreciate the City Council's constructive approach. We do look forward to more developments on the North Anchor project, and wish you the best in tackling the pickleball issue.
Hopefully it won't have to come before you guys. So.
Thank you, and enjoy the August recess.
Thank you, and thanks for being here tonight.
You're welcome. We'll now move forward with our next agenda item, which are draft findings on LU 21-0078. This is a request for approval of a new park at the Rashik area. This entailed a major development conditional use permit for an athletic field, skate park, and lighting with a 65-space parking lot, and a minor development of construction of a maintenance building, picnic shelter, restroom, dugouts, play area, other site improvements, including utilities, walkways, and a pathway, as well as the removal of 28 trees. Commissioners, have you had a chance to look at the draft findings on LU 21-0078? Are there comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the findings report on LU 21-0078.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? If not, please call the roll. And if you're in favor, say aye, or opposed, no, or if you're abstaining, please let us know. Excuse me, go ahead.
Arthur?
Yes.
Smith?
No.
Poinsett?
Yes.
Sangre?
Yes.
Dews?
Yes.
And what was the result?
4-1.
Thank you. Now we'll move ahead with a continuation of the public hearing on LU 21-0076, which was a request for a conditional use modification for site modifications to replace the existing 18-hole public golf course with a 9-hole municipal golf course, development review permit for construction of a maintenance building, minor variance to maximum fence height to allow a 75-foot tall netting in connection with the driving range, and 2 30-foot tall screen fences to the north of hole 1 to the southwest of the maintenance building, a resource protection district delineation, and removal of 160 trees. And again, this site is located at 17525 Stafford Road. And Staff Coordinator Evan Franstead is here with us, Senior Planner, and I'll turn the meeting over to our professional staff to start the public hearing, or continuation of it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I can start it off and just by saying that the public testimony phase of this public hearing has been completed. There's no further opportunity to testify to the commission. So at this time, it does go to deliberations.
Thank you. Yes, at our July 18th meeting, we did continue the public hearing for additional evidence and then rebuttal evidence if additional evidence was received. Commissioner Smith?
I have a question. We received the memo with this, an analysis of the rebuttal information. And in the rebuttal information, there's a statement in section 2 with respect to this pedestrian pathway.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, this is the response of, in the rebuttal information, is that the pathway is proposed by the applicant to be developed as part of the LRAC project and not part of the Gulf project. So that made me look at the conditions. And then, so in C10, the C10 looks a little confusing to me, in as much as there's a conditional phrase at the beginning of it that says, in the case where the LRAC project is not approved, then it talks about parking spaces, period. Then it says, complete the pedestrian pathway as shown in this exhibit E7. So that, to me, that looks like a freestanding statement. So I have a condition that says, complete the pedestrian pathway as shown as on E7, but then we have this other statement that it's not part of this project. So as an attorney, I kind of got confused. What are the conditions? Are they conditional conditions? And is the pathway part of this project or not part of the project? And if it's not part of this project, then I presume it shouldn't be part of C10.
Okay, so there's kind of a lot to unpack there, but I'll start at the beginning. It's not part of this project. It's not proposed as part of the golf course, but the golf course itself, the redesign with the maintenance center does trigger the standard. So they do need to comply with the standard as part of the project. The condition C10 is meant to say, I mean, maybe we can reword this. Maybe it needs to be some kind of semicolon or something in there. But in case LORAC is denied, they need to build this pathway, is the intent of that condition.
So that conditional phrase should apply also to the second sentence.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So Senior Planner Franstead, I was under the impression that the proposed pathway was a standalone component of this project, and whether or not it was approved, if it were not approved as part of this project, would also reappear as a standalone component of the anticipated aquatic center project. Is that incorrect?
Yes, I mean, it's not standalone, it's just part of LORAC project. It's shown on the plans here to show.
Can you show where it is on the plans, please?
Yeah, so I tried that blue arrow right there that is pointing, that's where it begins. So it's along the southwest border of the site. It goes into the school property, kind of meanders around the maintenance building and connects to the future parking lot of LORAC. And eventually connects out to, well, through the parking lot with pedestrian pathways to Overlook and Stafford Road.
So this is not a pathway around the newly reconfigured golf course. It's just to get to the Stafford Road from.
It leads
other
directly
road.
to the new parking lot, but if it was not provided, if LORAC was not approved, this would still provide access to the site that's not there now, which is what the code requires. And I was going to do a little summary of my memo.
Oh, please, go ahead.
Maybe it's not necessary if you don't have questions for all this, but so the testimony that was submitted talked about whether they further questioned the statement of what the feasible clause of the standard. And the standard is the pedestrian connections between the proposed development and existing development on adjacent properties, other than connections via the street system, shall be identified and implemented where feasible. And just to summarize what my response was here is like the pathway is necessary to provide direct pedestrian connection to the residential properties to the west, to the golf course facilities, and ultimately to Stafford Road and Overlook Drive. So it is necessary as part of this project, is what staff is finding here. Without the pathway, pedestrians have to walk around via Treetop Lane or Overlook Drive, which is much further distance. There's no definition of feasible in the development code. The standard definition in the dictionary is feasible as capable of being done or carried out. This is a standard that applies to commercial, industrial, other kinds of development over 1 acre in size. So it's not just for public use like this. So we've applied this over many applications. The thing we usually look at to determine if the pedestrian connection is feasible is staff looks at potential barriers, such as physical barriers that would prevent the pedestrian pathway from being built, such as existing buildings, steep slopes, sensitive lands, things like that would not make it even theoretically possible without removing something there. And it's not the case here. This applicant has shown that they can build a pathway. The school is a willing partner in that. The application submitted demonstrates the pathway can be provided between the site and adjacent properties and that the applicable construction standards can't be met. Therefore, the pathway is feasible and should be required either with the Lake Oswego Recreation Aquatic Center, LORAC, or with this project if that project is not approved. Hope that answers some questions.
So just for clarification, it's staff's position that connectivity requirements require this pathway as part of the golf course reconfiguration?
That's correct. I think if you wanted to make a a finding of your own if you don't agree with that, that you have to make a finding that there's somehow it's not feasible. I think that the application shows that it very clearly is feasible.
Dwight, did you have a comment?
Well, I had the same concern you did, and is it appropriate for you in preparing the final recommendations to edit this last section so that it is unambiguously clear? I think that would help this, don't you agree?
Yeah, we
Good
can
point.
certainly edit condition C10 to make sure there's no period there, and it's all one statement.
Yeah.
We can do that.
Are there any other comments or questions about the pathway as relates to condition C10? Kirk?
So just so I understand it, this is almost like a springing obligation. Lawyers don't know why I use that concept, but it's basically the requirements for this project are going to be taken care of by a different project. And if those requirements are not covered by this future project, then this obligation for the developer springs into life, and with respect to the parking and completion of the path. Notwithstanding what this rebuttal saying that it's not part of this project, it is a legal concept, kind of sort of is.
It is a requirement of this project. Yeah, it just depends on how it's built. If it's approved as part of the LORAC, then that'll take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions or comments to staff regarding the golf course reconfiguration project? So I think at our last meeting on July 18th, there was concern expressed about the traffic impact analysis. Looking at the rebuttal under comment 6, page 2, it reiterates that there was kind of a multifaceted traffic impact analysis taking into account impacts of the Lake Oswego Golf Course renovation, the proposed anticipated recreation and aquatic center, and Rashik Park. I seem to recall there was discussion and evidence of other traffic improvements in the area, although perhaps not within the city limits. I think there was, and perhaps you could clarify that for me, was there a discussion of modifications to the roundabout and as I recall, a discussion of, and I'm not familiar with the topography, but is it Chandler Road? There's some type of anticipated project. And then there was concern, I think, about the tolling of 205 and what that might do to traffic impacts. Was that something that was discussed before?
There was discussion. I think it might have been more under the Rashik Park project, which is a different project. If you have questions, we have our traffic engineer here who can answer all those.
Well, some of the comments seem to suggest to me that even though the criteria tends to make us focus on these three projects, the golf course, Rashik, and the anticipated aquatic center, there's more going on there. But am I understanding there's really no way for the DRC in analyzing the traffic impacts in that area to take into account other projects other than the three that are listed here that the impact study has addressed? Because I think there was concern on the commission and certainly in the testimony that even though the criteria may be met, perhaps the criteria are not adequate for the overall regional traffic impacts of these developments. I don't know if you have any comments to that concern.
I feel like I should defer to our traffic engineer because he knows what he's talking about.
Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. There was discussion, I believe as part of RASIC, about the multiple projects there. There's the project that the Clackamas County is leading that is a reconstruction of Stafford Road between the Tualatin River and just south of the roundabout. That project doesn't have any traffic impacts. It is a safety project to provide bike lanes, a new intersection at Childs Road, and realign Johnson Road. The tolling project is being reviewed by ODOT for its impacts as part of its environmental assessment. So they get to look at their impacts and figure out what it's going to do to Stafford Road. The study for Rosique Park, for the golf course, and for Lorac just looked at the impacts for those projects on Stafford Road at numerous intersections. It's really hard to look at what the impacts of like tolling will be when it hasn't been approved yet and hasn't gone through its analysis. So these projects were just tasked with looking at their impacts in a future window.
Well, I appreciate you addressing that point. Do any of the other commissioners want to follow up with respect to traffic impacts? Dwight?
Yeah, we've all been laboring under and trying to understand how the city interprets the code, and I guess it's under 50.07.003. The traffic impact study requirements include, from my point of view, a very key section where it says the traffic impact study must meet as a minimum consideration of future conditions. That's 3C under that code. And the question that I have is, how do you define future conditions? Because when I read the report from the consultant, that very lengthy traffic impact study report, and I think that I do understand how that kind of a report is generated, they were very explicit in saying that their future consideration went through 2024, period. So that all of these events that may occur, whether within the city of Lake Oswego or outside, were not considered in the traffic impact study. And if that is consistent with the standards that you apply on behalf of the city, then I think that's the answer to our question. So the question is that how you apply future conditions?
Correct. Future conditions needs to look at approved projects that have a known impact. They call them in-process trips in the traffic impact analysis. Of if there's a development nearby, take the scenario of Rosique Park. It wasn't specifically called out as an in-process, but that's kind of how it's considered. It's Rosique Park is approved. This project would then take into consideration in that's future conditions, as well as in a pre-described amount of growth expected to come in on the facilities.
Thank you. Thank you.
With respect to the golf course modification project, are there other comments the commissioners have or questions relating to traffic or any other aspect of it? Well, I'm inclined to vote in favor of the project. I'm not a golfer, although I hope someday to be, but when I retire. But, and I'm persuaded that requirements of connectivity apparently mandate the inclusion of this pathway. So I think I'll probably be voting in favor of the project. Are there any other comments or a motion?
I just following up on the discussion the last couple weeks. I'm not sure how it could have been done differently, but the three components to this, Rosique Park, and now the golf course modifications, and then Lorac, bringing them in kind of piecemeal has proven a little bit confusing, I guess, at times, particularly when you have some conditions in one that impact the next phase, and if one of them doesn't get approved, like if the golf course didn't get approved, how would that impact Lorac coming in later on? I'm not sure what could be done differently, but I just feel like there could have been some way to create a little bit more of a complete wholeness between the three projects. It's just a comment at this point.
To be considered together instead of in isolation.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think we could have been able to do that, to look at that, and maybe it wouldn't be all done in one session, obviously, but yeah.
I appreciate that comment. If there's no other discussion on the matter before us, is there a motion? Dwight, did you have a motion?
Surely. I will move approval of the LU 21-0076, the golf course project, with the consistency with the conditions that have been outlined or proposed by the staff as requirements. And specifically, I'd like to see clarity applied through some editing to C10. But I will move approval of -0076.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? If not, we'll take a roll call vote. If you're in favor, please say yes. If you're opposed, no. Or abstain if you're abstaining.
Arthur,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Poinsett,
Yes.
Singry,
Yes.
Dews,
Yes.
5-0.
Thank you very much. We will now move ahead to our next agenda item, LU 22-0033. Now, this is a request for a conditional use permit for a preschool in an existing church building. The site is at 1855 South Shore Boulevard. Senior Planner Evan Franstead is our staff coordinator. Professional staff, if you want to deliver some remarks before we open the hearing, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and bear with me. I've got Evan's script. It's quite lengthy, but I'll stick with Evan's. Now is the time set for the public hearing on LU 22-0033. This land use request is to be considered based on applicable criteria and standards. Staff report lists criteria and staff identified by staff applicable to the request. It was available online and from the planning department. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards this criteria. Please identify to the commission the criteria or standards you are addressing so the commission may consider your testimony in relation to the criteria or standards you are addressing. If you do not identify the criteria or standards you are addressing, the commission is not obliged to guess which standards or criteria you are testifying about and may not consider your testimony in its decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements of evidence sufficient to afford this commission and other parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes raising the issue to the City Council, LUBA, or LUBA based on that issue. The failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval to allow this without enough specificity to allow this commission to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages to the circuit court. The public hearing process is as follows. First, a presentation by staff. Next, testimony by the applicant up to 20 minutes. Then testimony by parties in support of the application, testimony by parties opposed, and then testimony by those neither for nor against the application. Individuals get up to 5 minutes to speak. Any person in attendance may cede his or her time to another person except the applicant. But in no case shall any person's testimony be greater than 10 minutes. Recognized neighborhood associations and government agencies are allotted 10 minutes. The applicant does get a rebuttal of up to 5 minutes. Next is the deliberation, and then finally a statement to the applicant by the commission of proposed conditions of approval different than contained in the staff report, and applicant's response to commission's conditions of approval proposed following commission deliberation. A potential conflict of interest is declared on behalf of each of the DRC members to the extent of their business or employment, which each will identify. Unless declared otherwise, the respective DRC member does not have a known, present, or anticipated future business relationship with the project or applicant. It's possible that a future business relationship could arise in the initiation, design, construction, or maintenance of the project through either the employment or business of the DRC member personally or through a relative as defined by Oregon law. At this point, I'm going to ask the hearing body to declare any ex parte contacts, including site visits, any bias, any financial conflicts of interest, and state your business or employment. So,
John, did you want to go forward?
Yeah, I'm John Dews. I am an architect, and I have driven by the site. I haven't spent any time actually on site. I don't have any ex parte contacts, nor do I have any bias in relation to this project or financial conflicts of interests.
thank you.
My name is Dwight Sangre. I'm a retired engineer. I am familiar with the site, having driven past it. I have not been on the site. I have not had any ex parte interactions with relationship to the site. I have not had and do not anticipate any personal business or other relationship with this project or its participants.
Bruce?
Okay, my name is Bruce R. Poinsett. My occupation is a construction safety consultant, primarily industrial, commercial, what have you. I have not visited the site, I passed by it. I do not have any ex parte contacts, no biases, no financial conflict or interest.
Thank you. I'm Randy Arthur. I'm a civil litigation attorney with the Portland office of Bullivant Hauser Bailey, a law firm. I have no ex parte contacts. I have not made a site visit. I have no financial interest in the application and have no disqualifying conflicts. Thank you. Kirk?
My name is Kirk Smith. I'm a real estate and land use attorney with the law firm of Buckhalter. The city provided me with a list of parties, including the applicant and the applicant's consultants, and I run those names through our conflict system and determined that Buckhalter, David Evans and Associates was a former client of Buckhalter. To give you an idea how former they were, is 15 years ago we closed the file, but in trying to give full disclosure, they were a former client. I have not visited the site. I do not have any ex parte contacts. I have no bias and no additional financial conflicts of interest.
Thank you for that disclosure.
Thank you, commissioners. At this point, I'll ask the audience if anyone is going to challenge the commissioner's right to consider the application. Seeing none, we'll go to the staff report.
Thank you.
Thank you, City Attorney and members of the commission. So the site is approximately 4.7 acres with frontage on South Shore Boulevard, a major collector street, and Oak Street, a local street. The site is zoned R10. Adjacent properties to the north are zoned R15, developed with residential dwellings. Properties to the south across South Shore Boulevard are zoned PF for public function, and R7.5 developed with a fire station, City of Lake Oswego tennis court, and residential dwelling. Budding property to the east is zoned R10 and developed with a school, that's Park Academy. Properties to the west are developed residential dwellings and are all zoned R7.5. The site is developed with Lake Oswego United Methodist Church and existing preschool. The existing building is approximately 27,842 square feet, and the parking lot has 164 parking spaces. Per 50.01.003.4, no development permit shall be issued for development or use of the land in violation of this code unless the violation is rectified as part of the development. The property owner was put on notice in 1998. The existing preschool on the site required a conditional use permit. The submitted application materials show that there's an existing preschool on the site. The applicant or property owner has not provided any evidence that an existing preschool received a conditional use permit. Therefore, condition B1 requires conditional use permit for the pre-1998 operating preschool to be obtained if it is to remain in operation on site in order to rectify the violation. Here's the site plan. This plan shows access to the site and traffic flow with drop-off pickup area to the north area of the parking lot. No exterior modifications to the building or parking lot or access ways are proposed as part of this development. Here's a floor plan that shows the area of the existing building where the new preschool will be located. The required parking spaces for the preschool will be 3 parking spaces for 980 square feet in gross floor area. The church area, this floor plan shows the existing church has a maximum seating capacity of 623. The church use requires 156 parking spaces. So altogether, the minimum parking requirement for the proposed uses on the site is 159 parking spaces. The site plan shows that the site has 164 existing parking spaces. And here's the dedication and clear site map. Recommended condition A1 requires dedication of 10 feet of public right-of-way along the eastern portion of the site frontage, approximately 90 feet long, to align with the existing right-of-way along the remainder of the site and in order to meet the standards for a major collector level street. In addition, condition A2 requires non-exempt vegetation and obstructions within the clear vision triangles, as shown in red there, shall be removed as needed to meet the site distance requirements. For the conditional use criteria, for Criterion 1, the proposal does not include any exterior physical alterations to the building or site. Therefore, the dimensional standards in the R10 zone are not triggered and the requirements of the zone are met. The Criterion 1 is met. For Criterion 2, LOC 50.03.003.5F for education institutions and daycare centers uses is applicable. Ingress will be provided with the existing west driveway and egress via the existing east driveway. No proposed changes to existing driveways are proposed. Site plan shows students drop off, pick up in the existing parking lot north of the building. The site plan also demonstrates existing on-site circulation provides connection to the existing pathway along South Shore Boulevard. This standard is met. Staff finds there is adequate space in the existing building within the site for the existing building and overall site with the new preschool use. The site is physically capable of accommodating the proposed use, meeting Criterion 3. For Criterion 4, the applicant's narrative explains the existing characteristics of the site are already reasonably compatible with existing uses in the vicinity. A traffic study was performed to estimate the trip generation of the proposed preschool. The proposed preschool is projected to generate 13 a.m. and 13 p.m. peak hour trips and 132 total weekday trips. Engineering staff concurs with the applicant's analysis of trip generation and finds that no further analysis of site impacts or evaluation of intersection operation is required. The proposed new school will use existing parking lot and outdoor areas. The closest residential properties are approximately 21 feet to the east of the existing parking lot. No new lighting or noise generating equipment is proposed. The proposed preschool is not expected to create significantly more noise than the current uses on the site. The preschool will operate Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 11 a.m. with 14 to 16 children maximum, and from 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. with 16 children. The hours of operation are not expected to have significant impact on the surrounding uses. Staff finds that due to the existing uses on the property and sufficient distance from adjacent uses, the proposed preschool will be reasonably compatible with uses in the vicinity. Criterion 4 is met. Overall, staff finds that the conditional use criteria are met. So in conclusion, staff is recommending approval of LU 22-0033, subject to the recommended conditions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? John?
Yeah, could you go back to the floor plan that showed the actual location of the new preschool?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's the purple there.
That's on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
And the yellow is an existing?
That's the existing preschool.
And we're talking about a conditional use permit for the new school, right?
That's correct.
That right now. But it's also conditioned that the existing one does not have a conditional use permit in hand right now and would be neat. Are these two schools related to each other?
They're not.
Okay,
And I'm sure the applicant can probably talk more about that. but
Okay.
Yeah, that one has been in there, not since 1998. I think it's changed a couple times, or at least once. But it's a completely separate preschool.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Kirk?
Following up on that concept, I was intrigued by the idea that the applicant is South Shore Preschool, but their CUP is dependent on a third party then getting a CP. And I've never seen that before, in which one CUP is dependent on somebody else getting a CUP. So can you maybe explain to me how that's supposed to work?
Well, as I talked about in my presentation, the code requires that you have to rectify a violation before we can issue another permit. And that's not just special to CUPs, it's for any permit. So if there's a violation, say, a note of violation, I don't know, it could be like a building addition that wasn't permitted or something like that, we can require them to rectify that violation as part of a new permit. And that's the case here. There's a note of violation. It was already called out in the 1998 conditional use NDR permit at that time. It's an obligation in the code.
Well, I get that, but is that sort of Damocles hanging over the owner, or is it hanging over South Shore? Because as I said before, we're supposed to be looking at this CUP for this use and this applicant, only for the city to say, oh, and by the way, you lose your CUP if the other party doesn't get the CUP within the time period?
Yeah, I can read the condition and expand on it. So the condition says, obtain a conditional use permit for the existing preschool, which is called Westland Community Preschool, to remain on site. Failure to obtain the permit may lead to conditional use being revoked. It says may lead, as well as penalties and other enforcement actions. And the heading of it is within 6 months of the date of approval, or at such time as provided by staff in writing if satisfaction progress is being made towards compliance. So it's within a time frame that is flexible. I mean, ultimately, the application itself is the property owner's application. They're the applicant, and it's their responsibility, but they're required to rectify this violation. But also, the new preschool is part of it. So we could revoke it if there's no progress made. That's part of it.
Okay. And then the second question I had in the staff report and as condition 1A is there's the Dolan analysis of requiring the 10-foot dedication for 90 feet. And so it kind of struck me as the city saying in order for this preschool for little kids to go here and get educated, the city's going to require a dedication of real property. And that, I was trying to figure out the balancing, and I mean, I get all the analysis under Dolan, I get all that. But I just thought that was interesting, and I'm not, I mean, a little bit uncomfortable that in order to get a CUP, the church is going to have to give up this right away. And then the other thing that kind of struck me is that I understand the city wants to get the 10 feet. I get that. I was a little confused about whether or not the collector road was part of the analysis. But when I looked at, I'm not sure what exhibit this is. I think it showed. It was the exhibit that pointed to me that required dedication, and I guess there's a sightline analysis with it.
Yeah, it should be this one.
The one that's on the screen.
Oh yeah, thank you. Then I thought, hey, that's great, the city gets 10 feet from the church for the CUP, but what about 1791 and, I mean, the house at 1791 and 1790, the city's not gonna get, that doesn't really help the city other than extracting the 10 feet, unless 1791, I guess, makes some kind of, requirement for a permit, and that's when the city will get that 10 feet, or, eminent domain, I suppose. But the balancing and the weightiness of what you require from a property owner for a CUP for a preschool, I thought that was a little heavy-handed. And I was just trying to figure out what was the thinking. I don't know if you have the answer, but it just seemed a little bit difficult from my perspective that the city would do that in this case. So
I can't hear. Okay.
So based on the traffic impact analysis, the site was going to have have a impact on the street. They were going to generate additional trips from this property. As part of that, the city can acquire right-of-way to enhance public utilities, connections, whatever. It was deemed that this 10 foot of dedication for about 90 feet could be used to improve at some time in the future South Shore, which is a major collector, either by including utilities in this space, a pathway, but having it basically as the public right-of-way would give us an ability to provide those improvements in the future. You made a good observation that 1791 and 1790, we would likely need those in the future. And if they come in for partition or some intensification of their use, we would probably require the same 10 feet of dedication along South Shore for them.
is there a tipping point in which, because I understand the traffic analysis, but I think it was like 13 trips for this small preschool is what I read.
130 daily trips.
130.
Oh, maybe that's where I got the 13.
13 was the morning peak hour. So in 1 hour in the morning, it would be 13 trips, usually during that morning arrival, drop off, and departure. This would be equivalent to roughly like 13 homes. So if you were to build, let's say 13 homes somewhere, it'd be the same amount of trips expected. And that's in addition to what's already on the site.
So that's the equivalent of 13 homes to have this preschool.
Yes, the traffic is equivalent to 13 additional homes.
As part of the traffic analysis, is there any factor based on the fact that it's a church? Because typically churches are some of the most underutilized facilities. It's like Sunday, Wednesday Bible study, and otherwise there's no trips going to the church. Is that ever factored into this concept that this preschool is going to generate additional trips?
So it would have likely been brought in with the original conditional use permit of the church and their impacts. So the preschool, the way it was evaluated was this is on top of what would be standard for the church. So 13 additional trips to whatever the church would generate in the morning, which probably related to the original conditional use was very low. But the church has already accounted for their impacts as part of the previous permit.
So it's 13 trips, but a total of 130?
132 for the day.
Yes, 13 in the AM, 13 in the PM, and yeah, 132 total weekday trips.
Over
24
a week?
hours.
Weekday, one
1 weekday.
130 additional trips. I'm sorry, that's why I'm not a traffic study guy. So
It's an average. It's an average daily trip estimate or projection. So if the preschool operates 5 days a week, maybe it operates more than that, I don't know. In theory, it's that many trips on average per day. And on average, 13 peak hour trips in the AM and PM each day as a preschool operates. That's what the ITE manual says, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So there are 26 trips a day times 5 to get to the 130.
No, it's, you have pickups and drop-offs in your lunch that aren't accounted for that AM peak hour. You have after hours. It's that 13 in the morning and evening is just that 1 hour of everyone coming, dropping off their kids and leaving typically. The 132 is deliveries. It is off-peak hour arrivals of staff or lunchtime departure and come back. It accounts for a lot of other trips involved. The traffic analysis in this case actually broke it down to where they expected a certain amount of students in the morning, and then they were going to have a separate class in the afternoon, if I recall. So they kind of showed how the math worked between the two different classes of 16 students equaled kind of close to that 132 value for the day.
So a total of 132 throughout the day with 13 peak.
In the morning and 13 also in the evening.
I see. Okay, so the 26 in the peak, but then there's 100 other trips during the day.
Spread out through the day.
Okay.
Your UPS, your trash, or any services that come by, any trip that goes onto the site and off the site is in that, or any vehicle that goes in and off.
So is there a certain number of trips in a day that then triggers the Dolan analysis that the city then wants to acquire 10 feet of right-of-way? Or is it like one trip equals dedication, or how does that work?
That would probably be up to my development engineering supervisor who does the conditions on how much it kind of qualifies for the proportionality of their impact. But usually with a few homes, so I've seen us take sidewalks, or take space for sidewalks. Just thinking on other projects.
Okay, thanks.
Is there an existing pathway that this proposed dedicated 10 by 90 feet stretch connects to going towards the church, or is that all undeveloped?
There's an existing asphalt pathway along South Shore there in the front.
Where and this dedication would continue that?
Well, I think it's already, that pathway at that point is already in the right-of-way. This will provide future area to further improve if necessary in the future.
But there are no plans to add additional pathway or utilities. It's just something the city will hold in reserve for future use.
There is a project identified in the city's transportation system plan, which I believe that calls for a pathway along South Shore. It's future concerns, but we have the right of way in order to build that in the future without condemnation or taking of it.
Any other questions or comments of staff before we hear from the applicant? Okay, thank you. Would the applicant like to come forward, please, and address us and make a statement? Welcome. Yes, please. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Sarah Sterling. I'm Melissa McCurry. We are the teachers at South Shore Preschool.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Would you like to discuss the application and what you want to do?
Sure. Okay. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so yeah, we are South Shore Preschool, and we are thrilled to be here in the community and to be over at the location we're at. It's a great location for a preschool. It's a nice, safe space, beautiful treat area for children to come and learn. So you want to say who we are?
Like we said, I'm Sarah and this is Melissa. We are lifelong Oregonians. We've been here for almost our whole lives. We're both raising families here. Melissa raised her family over in West Lynn. I'm currently raising 2 boys here in Lake Oswego. We have been both teaching, we've been teaching for about 25 years. I've been teaching preschool here in Lake Oswego for almost 2 decades now. I took a little break to mom for a little while. We've been together as teachers, co-teachers for about 7 years now, and just decided it was time for us to have something of our own. And we both really look at teaching preschoolers and their brains and the way they work in the same kind of way. So we're a good fit for each other.
So who we serve is children 36 months to kindergarten age. We provide them with quality education, learning materials. We specialize in social emotional education, kindergarten readiness at our play-based preschool.
Our school hours are going to be Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 12:30 this year. And we are planning ahead for a hopeful future afternoon class. We started marketing a little late in the year, so we're hitting it slow, and we're going to build and have that afternoon class hopefully next year. The only other things we would ever host would be summer day camps at the preschool, Monday through Thursday kind of thing, 9 a.m. to noon. And then family events such as family potlucks, a family picnic for the other parents to get to know each other, those kinds of things.
Yes, so currently we will not have that afternoon class. We're just in the morning. We hoped we would get the enrollment for both, but as of now, it's just the morning. But yeah.
But we wanted to plan ahead.
Yeah, as the traffic report covers, that when we do get that future class, we'll be good.
As you guys saw, we are over at the Lake Oswego United Methodist Church. We're on 1855 South Shore Boulevard. And that is a great little picture of our playground and our classroom door.
You've already seen this, but yeah, the building was preschool ready. We're not making any modifications to the exterior or the interior. There's adequate parking, and there's accessibility for those with disabilities already there.
The things we've already done to finish the conditions of the use permit is a traffic study. We hired a company for that. We hosted a neighborhood meeting, and we sent out all the mailings and had all those things notarized. We wrote a nice narrative for you guys to read so you'd understand this before we sat down in front of you. We put together maps and site plans, and we coordinated with the church.
And so far, all of the feedback has been really positive from anyone in the area we've talked to.
In fact, nobody showed up to our neighborhood meeting except for our neighborhood association chair to just come and say, I just wanted to see your cute faces.
And invite us to an ice cream social.
We really, really appreciate you guys being here tonight and doing this with us and helping us get through this process. And we are really thrilled to be starting this business and hopefully becoming a big part of your community. And we just want to say a special thank you to Evan for
answering our
being
dumb
considerate
questions.
and helping us through this. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here and thank you for your presentation. Commissioners, do you have questions of the applicant? John?
I'll ask the same question that I asked of planning. Are you in any way related to the existing preschool that's there?
No, we are not.
Okay.
No, we just rented space that was available. Came and got,
Understood.
applied for
Okay.
our license.
Kirk?
I'm curious, you probably heard me talk about the fact that the other preschool is basically holding your business, I guess, it sounds like, in their hands. Is there been discussions with their church and with other business to find out what's going to happen with their CUP or?
That information was pretty recent for them. So that preschool is still processing it and trying to figure out how they can make that work.
We certainly hope that they will move forward so that ours is not in jeopardy. We'll offer support, maybe some mentorship if they have questions about how we got through this process. So we're willing to do that.
But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're asking if we're scared, if we're concerned about the stipulations of all of this conditional use permit being, yes, we are very nervous about that, but we believe in this church because they believe in us the way that they have clearly shown that they have our backs.
Well,
I know that's not something you should say to necessarily a lawyer.
No. Can you turn my mic down a little bit? Thank you. I'm also a sound guy, so I know the gain is really high. Sorry. I would think that maybe what I know about churches is maybe you should be working with the pastor, and I don't know if Methodist Church is the eldership or deacons or whatever, because I think I elicited from Evan that the property owner, which is the church, needs to, get the CUP for the other thing because it impacts your business and your ability to go forward. So I would think that the pastor or rector or deacons or elders would, maybe you need to reach out to them and say, we want to educate kids, but the city is saying, if this doesn't happen, then we're in violation of zoning as well, so.
We do trust that the church will figure this out.
Yeah, we
with
do
her.
have a representative here from the church. I don't know if you need him to speak, or if you have questions.
Yes, we can invite him when you're finished,
Okay.
if he likes to speak.
Yeah, he can
Kirk,
speak,
here's
but
one thing that
I'm sorry?
Here's one thing that I know that you might like to hear is that I know a part of our lease is that if you guys do not approve us, our lease is void. So unfortunately, we've put a lot of money into this already, but that's part of business. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments of the applicants? How do you advertise your preschool, and what is your target group to recruit students from?
We are trying all different things to advertise our school. We are walking billboards. We have flyers.
Yes, I noticed.
We have flyers, and we word of mouth. Being a teacher, a preschool teacher in this community for 2 decades will definitely get you somewhere. People know Teacher Sarah, so that's a part of it.
We've done Facebook ads, Instagram, Google.
But it turns out that word of mouth, our families that know us,
Yeah.
people that know us, that is one of our best recruiting places, so.
Great, well, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Would a representative of the church like to speak in support of the application? Good evening, please identify yourself.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Connolly Woody. I'm a member of Lake Oswego United Methodist Church, and I serve on the trustees. And the trustees, or the committee, is the one that's challenged with managing the property and that type of thing. So, we're, as a church, we've been impacted by COVID, memberships down and that type of thing. So we've been looking for avenues to raise revenue. And we have classrooms that are underutilized during the week. And so the trustees said, let's try to lease it. And we came across South Shore just quite by accident through our office manager. And so we're looking forward to having them.
Are there questions of the church representative? Well, I think you've heard testimony tonight that there's a violation in connection with the existing preschool not having proper approval. Is there a plan to address that by the church?
Yes, we, frankly, everyone was surprised that we even needed a conditional use permit for something like this in a facility like ours. Caught everybody off guard. We were also surprised to find out that there was a requirement for it in 1998. I've been a member of the church since 1995. I remember that we had a preschool there, but they left, at some point. Never heard any discussion about it. Our office manager has been there almost as long as I have, and she's researched all of our files to find information about the requirement or whatever. And the only thing we can assume is the preschool that we were leasing it to at the time was told this, but they never mentioned it to us. But beyond that, we've had other preschools come and go over the years, and it's never been something that we were aware of that we needed. I think what triggered this, if I'm not mistaken, is that they applied for a business license. And so by doing the right thing, they ended up getting, well, I won't say what I think they got, but they're paying a lot of money for something that they really shouldn't have to do. $2,000 for a traffic study, over $3,500 for a application fee for a business that's trying to get a preschool started in a facility that's more than capable of handling. So there was a lot of consternation among our trustees that they were having to go through this in the first place. But we understand that it's the rules and the requirements. Back to your original question about the existing preschool, that is a co-op, parent co-op preschool. A member of our church is one of the people that runs it. Again, she was not aware that she needed it. We've had a conversation with her and basically told her she either will have to come in compliance with code or that'll be the end of it. So it's unfortunate that another person who can't afford it would have to pay $3,500 and God knows what else for a traffic study. But again, we understand those are the rules.
Well, we appreciate your constructive approach to resolving that situation. Are there other questions or comments of this gentleman? Did you have anything else you'd like to add, sir?
No, we hope you approve. That would be it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is anyone present to speak in favor of the application? Anyone opposed from the public? Anyone neither opposed nor? Well, I didn't know if somebody was on by Zoom or something. Hearing none, are we ready now to move into deliberations?
Mr. Chair, yes. At this point, I would ask the applicant if they want to submit a final written argument, which could delay deliberation, or if they would like you to deliberate now. I assumed as much. So, yeah, conduct deliberations.
Very good. Do commissioners have reactions or comments? John?
Yeah, I'd like to just follow up on what Kirk was saying earlier. I would hate to have a conditional use permit or a condition on another entity impact the South School's preschool. I don't know if there's any way to rewrite that condition or reword it somehow that if the existing school doesn't get a conditional use permit, and I think the church even talked to it, they would have to shut down their business, but not necessarily become a condition for this property, for this school.
It does seem awkward that this applicant can't get its own conditional use permit. I don't know, Director Siegel, if there are any comments you might shed on the situation.
I guess I'm happy
City
to weigh
Attorney.
in too. So conditional use permits run with the land, not with the. So this would be something that's subject to the land. So any prior, so if the church sold the property, the conditional use permit would follow that. So this doesn't go. The permit's not to the business; it's for the land. So so there is no way to bifurcate them if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I guess that's a better way of phrasing what I was asking.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, I mean, there are two possible remedies. One is that the existing school comes into compliance by going through the proper permitting process. The other remedy is that they vacate. And I think it sounds like everyone is motivated to try to, make that, legalize the existing use. It's obviously not having an impact, or it hasn't had a noticeable impact on anyone who's been operating. We have preschools that move in and out of other churches that do go noticed when they move in or if they're operating illegally. And so unfortunately, I mean, that's why we have to, they'll have to go through the proper permitting process. But I think staff would certainly work with, the existing school operator if they're inclined to apply for a permit and just try to make it as, streamlined and efficient as possible for them.
Kirk?
I guess I have a question. I think the answer is in the staff report that, is it because this property is zone R10 that they need a CUP to have the preschool? Is that the triggering factor, I guess?
Yeah, it's on page 6 of the staff report. Yeah, it's a residential zone, institutional use for private education requires a conditional use application.
Okay, and then it's like I feel for this small, tiny business that each of them are having to pay all these wonderful fees to get our approval. Is one applicant able to use the traffic study of another applicant so that, I mean, it's like, I presume that it can't be stale.
Yeah, it's an Commissioner Smith, it's an administrative matter that we'll consult with the engineering department and, as I said, try to find the most streamlined and, customer business-friendly approach that we can.
Okay.
Right, so the first step is a pre-application meeting. We'll sit down with the existing preschool and we'll go over the requirements, and they can probably reuse a lot of this application, like the site plan and all that stuff, maybe even most of the narrative.
We'll take it under advisement and.
That'd be great. Maybe whiteout. I mean, if you guys are old enough to know what whiteout is, but thank you.
Hey, we used to make maps with Zipatone. I don't know, do you know what that is? Do you remember that?
What is it? What?
Well, we can talk about it off.
Okay, thank you.
I don't remember Zipatone, but anyway. Commissioners, any other comments or questions? Is there a motion?
So I move that the application be approved, whatever number it is, LE 22-0033.
I'll second that.
And your motion is with the dedication of the 10 by 90 foot right-of-way, as recommended by staff in the staff report.
Well, it's part of the conditions. I don't think I can have them excise that, so.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that was part of the motion. Thank you.
My motion would be to remove that condition, but I don't think we can do that. But thank you, Chairman, for bringing up that point.
I just wanted to clarify. Then let's take a roll call vote, saying yes if you're in favor of the motion, no if you're opposed, indicating if you're abstaining, please.
Arthur.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Poinsett.
Yes.
Sangre.
Yes.
Deuce.
Yes.
5-0 passes.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to the applicant and the church representative for your participation tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time.
We would anticipate returning with findings on August 15th.
I was going to make an aside comment that the Mountain Park Preschool has an excess of applicants, and you might contact them to see if some referrals would be possible.
We would love to. Thank you for that information.
Thank you. Director Siegel, do you have information on schedule and management updates?
Thank you, Chair Arthur. Your next regularly scheduled meeting is August 15th, and you have a public hearing scheduled on the Aquatics and Recreation Center proposal at the golf course that evening, as well as findings for the hearing you just completed tonight.
That's on August 15th.
August 15th, yeah.
Anything else you'd like to share
That
with us?
concludes the management update this evening. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Any other business tonight? Very good. If not, our meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.